This wasn't the first time she left me a list, but it was the first time I read it twice. I had just come home from a 14-hour shift. 2 servers crashed at once on campus, and I hadn't eaten anything since a stale muffin at 7 a.m. The house was spotless, eerily quiet, and there it was on the kitchen island, a neat yellow notepad with Darla's perfect handwriting. She always printed her letters like she was writing a menu. Fix the porch light. Fold laundry. White basket only. Schedule Max's checkup. Refill Breda. And please remember to set the trash out this time. No excuses. XOD. No hi. No, how was your day? No, love you. It was the 3rd list this week. I remember just staring at it. Not angry. Not sad. Just hollow. The same way I stared at that blinking cursor for 3 hours last night while trying to write a birthday card for her. Not because I didn't care, but because I had nothing real left to say. Something had shifted between us, quietly, like a hairline crack spreading beneath paint, and now it was everywhere but still invisible to everyone but me. To her, I was doing my part. I was being reliable. To the outside world, we were a perfectly scheduled, well-maintained household. The kind of couple that shows up to charity events on time and always has clean Tupperware. But inside, I felt like a concierge at a hotel I paid to live in. Duties, tasks, duties. Repeat. A week earlier, I had suggested we try something spontaneous. Maybe a weekend road trip, just the 2 of us. She blinked at me like I'd spoken in Morse code. That doesn't fit our calendar, she said, clicking through her planner. Besides, we just did that wine tasting thing last quarter. Last quarter? Like we were running a fiscal relationship. So, instead of a road trip, she signed us up for a composting workshop. Said it would be useful. Useful. That's when I realized I wasn't a partner to her. I was an appliance. A working machine that changed light bulbs, handled tax software, and remembered her mom's birthday. And maybe, just maybe, that was all she ever wanted. But here's the thing. When you stop expecting love and start delivering only duties, the silence becomes unbearable. So, I made a decision. Not to fight, not to scream, just to match the energy. That's when everything changed. The next few weeks, I decided to become exactly what she had built me to be. The perfect husband on paper. No warmth, no softness, just efficiency. She wanted a man who handled responsibilities like a checklist. She got it. I started waking up earlier than her. The coffee was always ready by 6:30 a.m. Her mug next to the almond milk she preferred, with a napkin folded in a perfect square. The trash never missed a pickup day. Bills were paid before she even opened the mail. I reorganized the garage, cleaned the air filters, serviced the HVAC, all without her asking. And when she reminded me to do something, I'd say, already handled. With a flat smile that made her blink like she wasn't sure whether to be impressed or unnerved. Her friends noticed the difference first. We had people over one Friday night, some couple she knew from her office. I sat there, pleasant but quiet, only speaking when spoken to. When someone asked about our anniversary plans, I said we had none, but that I had submitted a maintenance schedule for the house for the next 12 months. Everyone laughed except Darla. She tried to play it off, making some joke about how I was the responsible one, but she looked at me longer than usual after that. Not angry, just unsettled, as if she couldn't tell if I was kidding or evolving into something she no longer controlled. It got worse or better depending on how you look at it. I started documenting everything. Every household task, every expense, every calendar update. I'd leave typed printouts on the kitchen island, color-coded. I replaced the yellow sticky notes she used to leave me with spreadsheet summaries of my own. When she'd mention the laundry, I'd respond with, refer to column C, row 14. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't rude. I was just precise. And Darla hated it. At first, she told her friends I was just hyper-focused on productivity. But by the 3rd week, she started picking little fights, asking why I didn't kiss her goodnight anymore, why I didn't compliment her new haircut, why I hadn't tried to touch her once in a month. I told her honestly that I didn't think she'd noticed when I did those things before, so I decided to reallocate my energy toward being useful. The silence that followed was louder than a scream. She tried to seduce me that night. I won't lie. She looked incredible. Silk robe, wine in hand, bedroom lit with candles like she just remembered what intimacy looked like. But it felt forced, strategic, and I saw it for what it was. A response to discomfort, not desire. So, I kissed her forehead, told her to sleep well, and went back to the guest room under the guise of needing to troubleshoot some software updates. That was the first night she cried. I didn't say anything. I just sat in the living room afterward, staring at the black TV screen, hearing the sound of her muffled sobs through a closed door. I wanted to feel something. Anger, guilt, even pity. But I felt nothing. She had wanted a provider, a scheduler, a man who did his part. Now she had one, and suddenly she didn't know what to do with him. It was a Thursday when the illusion cracked. Darla had forgotten her phone at home. That alone wasn't earth-shattering. She was usually glued to it, but that morning, she was in such a rush, she didn't even realize it. I noticed it buzzing on the marble counter, the screen lighting up with a message from someone named Lexi Yoga. That made me pause. Darla didn't do yoga, at least not anymore. She had a phase maybe 2 years ago, some hot yoga classes downtown that she quit after 3 sessions because, in her words, the mat smelled like regret. Still, I wasn't suspicious. Not yet. I figured Lexi was someone she met at a charity event or maybe a coworker with a dumb contact name. But when the same number texted again and the preview flashed across the screen, something tightened in my chest. Tell him you're at yoga again tonight, winky face. I'll book the suite. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The implications were already crawling across my spine like ice water. I just stood there for a while, frozen in my own kitchen, staring at a screen I suddenly couldn't look away from. Sweet. Again. That one word, again, hit harder than anything else. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a drunken flirtation or a one-time lapse. This was routine, coordinated, a parallel life. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was disbelief, disappointment, but mostly embarrassment. Embarrassment that I had spent the past month becoming a robot husband, perfecting my role as provider, when she was out there treating our marriage like a cover story. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I followed her. I waited until she left with her gym bag and sports water bottle and used the spare car we kept for winter. She didn't see me. She never looked back. I stayed far enough behind to avoid suspicion, but close enough to watch her pull into the private entrance of a boutique hotel 15 miles from town. And there he was, taller than me, dark hair, athletic, the kind of guy who probably did do hot yoga. He walked out from the elevator like he belonged there, confident, relaxed, with no hesitation as he held the door open for her and pressed a kiss to her cheek. Not lips, not romantic, just practiced like they'd done this before. Often. And Darla, she laughed. A real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard in years. I didn't follow them into the lobby. I didn't need to. I just sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles cracked, watching the two of them disappear up a marble staircase like something out of a romantic film I wasn't cast in. And in that moment, I wasn't even mad at her. I was mad at me because, deep down, I had known. I'd seen it in her eyes every time I made her coffee, in the way she touched her phone more than me, in the polite pecks, the rehearsed affection, the transactional intimacy. She hadn't just wanted a provider. She'd needed one, but she had fallen for someone else. And now I had a decision to make. Keep playing the role she wrote for me, or rewrite the final act myself. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat in the kitchen with the lights off, watching the flicker of the refrigerator's digital clock crawl past every minute. 12:18, 12:34, 1:03. I thought I'd cry. I thought I'd scream, flip the table, break a plate, something. But I didn't. Instead, I did what I was trained to do, what I'd done all these years in silence. I processed. She came home at 3:27 a.m., quietly, like a teenager sneaking in. Her keys barely jingled, shoes in hand. I heard her creep past the hallway, pause near the kitchen, then shuffle upstairs to our room. No words, no explanation, just soft, carpeted footsteps fading into darkness. The next morning, I made her breakfast. Same as always, almond butter toast, sliced banana, green tea with honey. I placed it on the kitchen island with the usual folded napkin. And when she walked in, she looked at me like I had two heads. "You're up early," she mumbled, still in the blouse she wore to cheat on me. "I figured you'd be tired," I said without looking up. "Long yoga session?" That one sentence stopped her in her tracks. I could feel the tension behind me like static. But she didn't break. Darla had mastered denial. She just laughed. A dry, mechanical sound. "Yeah, the new instructor's intense." I finally turned. Was his name Marcus? Her eyes froze just for a blink, but that was all I needed. She stammered something about a classmate, then reached for her tea with shaking hands. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I simply opened my laptop and slid it across the table. It was paused on a hotel review page, the same hotel she'd entered with him the night before. I had left no comments, no pictures, just the URL. Her eyes locked onto the screen, and for the first time in years, she didn't have a single rehearsed line. "What are you doing?" she whispered. I stood and picked up my keys. "What you always wanted me to do. I'm going to run errands." "Evan." Her voice cracked. "I'll be back at 3 o'clock, I continued. "There's a new furnace filter arriving. It needs replacing." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't show anger. I didn't even look at her again. Because the truth was, I had stopped needing answers. I had seen what I needed to see. That day, I didn't run errands. I went to a coworker's guest house, a guy named Byron who owed me a favor after I fixed his server crash in one weekend. I told him I needed to disappear for a bit, just to think. He handed me the key without asking questions. I spent the next 3 days there. No phone, no laptop, just a notepad and a list, but not her kind of list. My kind, what I wanted, what I needed, what I deserved. And somewhere around day 2, it hit me. Darla didn't cheat on me out of passion. She cheated out of habit. She had built a life around roles, not feelings. A husband who provided, a lover who thrilled, friends who envied. She didn't want real love. She wanted a system that worked. So I gave her one. And now I was going to shut it down. But not with screaming, not with vengeance, with precision, just like she taught me. By the 3rd morning, she started calling. The first, it was just a single missed call with no voicemail. Then 2, then 3. By noon, she had texted me 14 times, each one more desperate than the last. Not with apologies, no, but with confusion, panic, disbelief. "Where are you? You're scaring me, Evan. Please answer. I think we need to talk for real." And then, the one that told me everything I needed to know. "Can we just hit reset?" Reset. As if this were a PowerPoint deck she'd presented badly and wanted another shot at. As if our whole marriage had just been some badly run project, one she could revise if given the chance. But no text said, "I'm sorry." Not once. So I didn't respond. Instead, I went to a small cafe outside the city and pulled out the notebook I'd been building. It wasn't just thoughts anymore. It was a blueprint, a transition plan. For the first time in years, I was mapping out my life without her. And the shocking part? It didn't terrify me. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for over a decade. While sipping lukewarm coffee and listening to a family laugh in the corner, I did something I hadn't done in years. I smiled. Not because of freedom, not even because of revenge, but because I had finally stepped outside the machinery she'd built around me. I was no longer a husband powered by duty. I was a man moving by choice. When I got back to the house that night, Darla was sitting on the porch in the same outfit she wore 3 days ago, like she hadn't moved. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged. The confident posture she always carried was now replaced with a jittery kind of stillness. "I thought you were dead," she said, trying to make it sound like a joke, but her voice cracked in all the wrong places. "You didn't think that," I replied calmly. "You thought I abandoned my post." She blinked at me, confused. "What are you talking about?" I stepped past her and opened the door. The house smelled different, like tension, like uneaten food, and a perfume she wore when she needed to feel powerful. I went straight to the bedroom and grabbed a duffel bag I had packed months ago, back when I first started feeling like a stranger in my own skin. She followed me. "You're leaving." Her voice was shaking now. "No," I said as I zipped the bag. "I already left. You're just catching up." That stunned her. "Evan, don't do this. Don't throw us away. There is no us, Darla. There hasn't been for years. You were just the last one to admit it." She stood there silent, lips parted, searching for words she'd never learned to say. Honest ones. "Was it Marcus?" I asked. The question sliced the air between us. She turned pale. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. That told me more than a confession ever could. "You don't understand," she whispered. "No, I do," I said, stepping toward her for the first time that night. "You never wanted love. You wanted infrastructure. You wanted a man who did the checklist, smiled at the dinner parties, and handled all the ugly so you could keep the image shiny. That's not fair. You're right. It's not. But it's accurate." I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there and watched the woman who once called me her soulmate become small and quiet and lost in her own house. The moment I walked toward the door, she did something she hadn't done in over 5 years. She reached for my hand. I paused, and I let her fingers fall away. "I gave you everything you asked for," I said softly. "You just didn't realize how cold that could feel." Then I left. Not forever, not yet. But I needed her to sit in that silence. The same silence she'd fed me for years, dressed up in to-do lists and folded laundry. Now it was hers. I didn't go far. I stayed nearby in the same town. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because I wanted her to feel it. The absence. Not as punishment, but as reality. For once, she had to live in the house she built, alone with its cold air and color-coded calendars, where warmth had been replaced by function and intimacy replaced by obligation. I rented a small studio apartment over a florist shop. It smelled like eucalyptus and lavender, and for the first few nights, I slept on a floor mat with nothing but my duffel and a quiet mind. It was the best sleep I'd had in years. I didn't contact her, didn't check in. I figured if she truly had something to say, she would find a way. And she did. 3 days later, she showed up at my work. I was in the server room at the university swapping out a faulty patch cable when I saw her reflection in the glass door behind me. She didn't knock, just stood there holding a white envelope like it might burn her if she squeezed too hard. "Evan," she said softly when I opened the door. "I didn't know where else to find you." I stepped aside, said nothing. She walked in like a stranger. Everything about her felt unfamiliar now. The way she clutched her bag. The way her voice didn't have that casual control she always wore like perfume. She held out the envelope. "What's this?" I asked. Something I should have written a long time ago. I opened it later that night. Inside wasn't an apology exactly. It was a list, but this time it was for me. She had titled it, "What I Did to You Without Even Realizing It." And as I read, my hands went cold. "I used you for safety while I searched for excitement elsewhere. I chose presentation over connection. I stopped asking you how you felt when your silence made life easier for me. I wanted your reliability more than I wanted your love. I trained you to become a background character in your own life, and I liked it that way. I ignored your loneliness until you learned to stop expressing it. And worst of all, when you finally matched my coldness, I panicked. Not because I missed you, but because I realized I couldn't control you anymore." I read that page 5 times and I cried. Not because of what she wrote, but because she finally saw it. She saw me, not the man who folded the towels right, or cleaned the gutters without being asked, or answered on the second ring. She saw the man she erased, and she was horrified by what she'd done. The next evening, she called. I let it ring. Then she texted, "Can we start over?" Start over. It always comes back to that, doesn't it? Reset. Undo. Pretend the system didn't corrupt from the inside out. But this time I didn't answer. Instead, I mailed her something. Not a letter, not a ring, something she would never expect. A framed photo. It was from a vacation we'd taken 6 years ago, back when things still felt real. We were sitting on a bench in Oregon, my arm around her, both of us smiling. But the photo wasn't cropped the way we had framed it at home. This version showed the full frame, including a mirror behind us in the cafe window. In that reflection, she was looking away at her phone, and I was looking at her. I wrote one sentence on the back. This is when I knew. I just didn't have the words for it yet. And I never heard back. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of silence, of subtle peace, of quiet clarity I hadn't tasted in over a decade. I spent my mornings walking past the river trail, watching sunlight bounce off the water like it wasn't hiding anything. I talked more with strangers at the cafe downstairs than I had with my wife in the last year of our marriage. I started sketching again. Nothing fancy, just the outlines of city streets, people's shoes, empty windows. I felt still. Not happy, not free, just still. Like a pond after the last stone sinks. And then the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Maybe I thought she'd finally figured out what to say. Maybe I thought I needed to hear it. But it wasn't her voice that greeted me. It was her mother's. Evan, she said. This is Carol, Darla's mom. I sat up. She's in the hospital. My chest went hollow. She's fine now, Carol rushed to say. She fainted in her office. They think it was stress, maybe something else. But when she came to, she asked for you. I didn't respond right away. She said if anyone could make sense of what she's feeling, it would be you. I don't know what happened between you two, Evan, but she's not the same. I could have hung up. I could have said, I'm not her husband anymore. But I didn't, because part of me still remembered the version of her that used to hum along with the radio, or tear up at old movies, or squeeze my hand twice in a row just to say, I love you without words. So I went. The hospital was cold, fluorescent, slow. I found her in a private room, awake, thin, wearing no makeup, the version of her no one else ever saw. She looked at me like I was a memory she didn't expect to still be real. You came, she whispered. I nodded but didn't sit. She looked fragile, not physically but emotionally, like a statue with hairline cracks under perfect skin. She gestured toward the chair next to her. I didn't move. I've been talking to someone, she said. A therapist. Just once. But it helped. I waited. She continued, voice trembling. I told her I thought I married the right man, that I picked someone stable, safe, loyal. But I realized I never chose someone I actually respected. That hit harder than I expected. I didn't respect you, Evan, because I never really saw you. I saw what you did, not who you were. And now that I've lost both, I can't forgive myself. Still, I said nothing. She looked up at me, desperate. Do you hate me? I exhaled. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you. I just finally stopped orbiting around someone who never noticed I had my own gravity. Her face crumbled. I don't expect you to come back, she whispered. But I need you to know you were the best thing in my life. I was just too busy organizing my calendar to notice it. Silence. I finally sat down. I believe you, I said. But believing you doesn't mean I can live in that world again. That man you needed, the checklist version, he's gone. And the one that's left, he doesn't fit in that life anymore. She nodded through her tears. We sat in silence for a long time. And in that quiet, something healed. Not between us, but within me. She finally saw me, not as her husband, not as her failure, but as a man she never really understood until he left. I didn't return to the hospital after that night. Not because I was angry. I wasn't. Not because I wanted her to suffer. I didn't. I just knew it was no longer my role to hold her hand through the consequences of her own awakening. I had finally stepped outside the framework of our old life, and stepping back would mean shrinking again. I wasn't willing to do that. Not for guilt, not for habit, not even for nostalgia. Darla was discharged 4 days later. She didn't text, didn't call, but I found out through a mutual friend that she had resigned from her job and moved back to her mother's house. At least temporarily. She needed time, they said. I quietly hoped she would use it well. Me? I moved forward. It didn't happen overnight. Healing never does. But slowly I built something new. Not out of bitterness or loss, but out of curiosity. I started teaching part-time, something I'd always wanted to do but never felt important enough to pursue. I joined a small sketch group on Saturdays where no one knew me as Darla's husband. I even got a dog, a clumsy, anxious mutt named Milo, who barked at ceiling fans and followed me around like I was the only planet in his solar system. And then one rainy Sunday afternoon, I met her. No grand moment, no cinematic music, just a bookstore, a broken umbrella, and two people reaching for the same coffee table photography book about national parks. Her name was Quinn. She laughed when I apologized for grabbing the book first and said, "No worries. I prefer used books anyway. More fingerprints, more stories." That was the first thing I learned about her. The second, she saw people, not what they could do, not how well they functioned. She listened with her entire face, asked questions, and noticed the way I fidgeted with my sleeve when I was nervous and didn't try to fix it. She never once treated me like a task to be completed. We talked for 2 hours that day. I didn't mention Darla. I didn't talk about betrayal or checklists or emotional absence. I just told her about a dog named Milo who thought ceiling fans were birds with bad attitudes and a sketch I'd done of an empty park bench that made me cry without knowing why. She smiled and said, "That's the kind of honesty most people spend their lives avoiding." We exchanged numbers slowly, naturally. No games, no expectations, just two people who didn't need each other to be anything but real. A year later, we took a road trip to that same park from the photo I had mailed to Darla. But this time, I was the one looking away from the camera because Quinn was telling a story, and I didn't want to miss her eyes while she told it. That's when I knew I hadn't lost everything. I had just made room for something better. And as for Darla, I don't know where she is now. I hope she's okay. I hope she found what she was truly searching for beyond systems and structure and surface-level smiles. But I'm no longer her foundation. And for the first time in my life, I'm not anyone's checklist. I'm me fully, finally, freely. And I wouldn't trade that peace for anything.